So I am Ryan Adzima, and I'm going to be running through a quick demo for you with Jake Snyder. Actually, he's going to be running through the demo. I'm just his Vanna White for today. I'm going to take you through just a little bit of information about what we're doing with automating the AI-driven campus. Previously, we would go through and we would show you some crazy scripts or some off-the-wall platform that we custom built the 2 days before a demo. But today we're going to show actually using some tools that are out there that most people don't use for full-blown automation. But first, why do Jake and I focus on the API so much? Because that's what Juniper Mist does. We are an API-first company. The features, everything you've seen, it's always developed for the API first. The process it goes through is the backend is developed, the endpoints, any objects that need to be created, anything like that for presenting new information or performing new functions. We go through all of that, and then it moves on to the UX team and then the UI team for implementation. Everything you can do in the dashboard, you can do through the API. And everything you can do through the API, is not necessarily available in the dashboard. As we release features, they'll hit the API first and eventually end up in the UI as that portion is developed. So you may see some things today that aren't available in the UI that Jake's going to walk through. When we talk to customers about automation, and orchestration, we kind of take the crawl, walk, run approach. With crawl, you're not really doing any coding or scripting. You don't really understand code. You just want to know, how do I get this information from Mist into some other system, or how do I do the reverse of that? You're doing simple transactions. You're looking things up, making simple changes. A lot of times we have what's called a Django web interface. It's the framework for our dashboard and our API. You can actually interact with that directly through through your browser. That doesn't always work when you want to start iterating through and automating some stuff. So that's when we get into the walking. You kind of understand the data types needed. You understand application workflows. You can develop or use a lot of basic scripts and tools. One of those tools that we talk about for that is Postman. And Postman kind of falls in that crawl walk area for a lot of people. It's a great utility. I'll talk about it more in a second. And then you get to run. And this is where you're running full-blown third-party orchestration frameworks like Ansible or Puppet. You're doing your own application development. And you can see here this kind of workflow. This is an actual slide from a demo that we did featuring all of these integrations. And it was actually using ServiceNow as the automation tool to orchestrate everything between all of these systems and push changes to the Mist cloud. I briefly worked on that, but I think it was Calvin Remsburg who did that demo for another network field day in the past. So Postman, it's a third-party tool. It does simple API interactions. You can create shareable collections. It's kind of training wheels, but not actually. It can do a lot. And, to kind of show you a little bit of Postman, what we've got here is my Mist, one of our dashboards. We've got some sites. If you need to look for a site, you can go in here. You can go and see what we've got for the NFP test, and we can look at all of the configuration there. You can do it through the Django framework, which is what this is. That's the site settings. Or we can go and we can do it in Postman. So I can go into my org. I can grab, now these are variables so that you're not seeing that information here. It's for when you're working in a workspace. And again, if any of this is over your head or under your head, or you have any questions about it, Jake and I are more than happy to talk about it. But we just want to get through and get to his demo and kind of fill in some background. So what we can do here is we can go in and we can look for the same one, and we can take this ID and we can set it to the site ID. And then we can go to stats, and you can see our site settings. You can see now we're grabbing the site settings for that very site. So we can get an idea of what payloads we're going to see, how we're going to interact with that, doing gets and posts. It's fairly basic, but it allows you to do a lot of prototyping. One thing you can do with that is you can actually see, curl scripts. You can output it to PHP, curl, Python. You can go through and you can put all of that information in there. Yes.
Hey, Ryan, so are you guys using this also? It's really for folks to understand how some of the JSON payload is sort of normalized.
Yeah,
in terms of how you guys present it.
It is a fantastic training tool for doing just that. For someone that really, they may have the understanding of the logic of how programming works, but they don't understand JSON at this point, or they don't understand how to interact with an API using code. It really gets them into seeing how those interactions work, what a GET request returns. I use it personally for prototyping when I'm interacting with a new API endpoint. I necessarily don't want to go write it all before I see what's going to be coming back.
Yeah, I use it to browse just to figure out how data is being organized and how it's being fed back. It's super useful that way, so that I don't have to spend as much time reading an API guide.
That's exactly what we use it for, and that's what I use it for. Jake has taken it a step further, and he's actually built a Postman collection for Runner. What Runner does is you can create a sequence of calls, and you can do some really advanced options with data parsing and processing. You can create multi-step workflows, and then you can share them. And that is exactly what Jake has done. We have a Mr. Runner collection that's out there, and Jake has built all of these out. And it's constantly updated. You can see right now we're at 0383. I believe he made some changes to the site creation for the latest one, but there are a lot of ways to go through this. So we can do site creation. Where's that? So we click run and we can see these are all the steps it's going to go through. We select a file, and I don't have a file ready to go, but you can see in the site creation, there are things in the documentation here that tell you what your file should look like, your CSV file. And you can go in and you select the file. You can choose to save or save the responses or not. Some of them require saving responses, and Jake will show you that when he gets to his. But it runs through all these different steps, and we can do that from a CSV. And we've done a demo in the past with the Python creating 500 sites in 5 minutes. We can do the same thing with Postman Runner. It allows us to do that, and it allows us to share that without sharing scripts that you have to worry about which Python version the other user is running, without having to do any extra package installation through pip or anything like that. What if they're on Windows and they don't want to install Python? Admin doesn't allow them to. Postman is really good for that. We've had a lot of people really using this. So, I recommend if you're new to automation and you're working with Mist, definitely go out and get the Runner collection. Jake has put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, and it's not just runs. There's a lot of Postman gives you the ability to inject scripts before or after an API call, and you can use that to format data, move stuff into the next call. So you can see like before this first API call runs, there's a bunch of things that happen. After the API call runs, there's a bunch of things that happen to prepare. There's also things like flow control that determine what the next API call is going to be based on what happened in this call. So
right, and Jake, you're handling on behalf of everyone. You're handling normalizing the data inputs and outputs.
You can see here in the pre-request script. So the first step in this site creation script, we go through and we unset all the variables. Like I said, you as you go through, you're setting variables between the calls so you can pass information between them. So that's where at the beginning of this, we unset everything, set some values, and then after it runs, we go through and we set some more values and move on to the next request.
Yeah. So a quick thing about this demo. So this is going to be the campus fabric core distribution ERB, meaning that the distribution switches are going to be the ones doing the L3 gateways and BRFs. And so one thing that I want to kind of make clear about this demo is that this is the art of the possible. It turns out that there's a silicon shortage, and getting a lot of switching to run in my home lab is difficult. So this will be running on virtual platforms, and that's the risk for this demo. Tom said you guys wanted live demos that we're really confident in. I can give you 50% of that today. So we're gonna run this, and it's all going to be deployed via Postman. So okay, so in this we have six switches. They're up and running. They are not managed by Mist today. Configuration's not managed. We also have our virtual gateway, and we have an access point that will come up, assuming the fabric works. That is bridged off of my NUC into a power injector. You can't actually get PoE off of a VSRX. And so this is the Postman collection we're going to run today for EVPN. It's got a number of steps. We're going to go through these. I'm going to start them so that we're not sitting around waiting. But effectively, the first step is just iterating through a set of data, which I believe is here. So I've got my networks is the first CSV. It just defines the networks and VRFs. This is the same thing you saw Sajit go through. And then the second one is going to do the same thing, but with switching. And so this is going to iterate through our switches. You can see just some basic roles. This does include the topology of how kind of they're linked together. And so we're going to run through these. And you can see it's going to run through each one. And then finally, we're actually going to take all of that and push it to the switches. So if we flip back to our dashboard, you'll see these are still generically named. There's nothing happening yet. But as soon as I push this, it's going to go to the site, each switch, pushing that config. You'll notice you get some green bars here. This is kind of the accountability piece, which is nice that Postman gives you to tell whether these tests were successful or not. It also lets you drill in. If I wanted to go see what got pushed to this switch's config, I can actually look and see what the Mist dashboard returned. Helpful if you need to debug. I also have a bunch of debugging. So if you do have a problem and you ping me and say, hey, Jake, your stuff doesn't work, this log file will tell me what's going on. So if we refresh now, we should see that all of our switches have names. Again, they're not managed yet. I'm going to go ahead and turn these on. And the reason I don't turn them on is because if I push to all these switches at once, it crushes my lab box, which is would be for a bad demo. This is our topology. You can see 2 distribution switches, 2 core switches. Unfortunately, the access switches don't show in this because these are ESI lag. So there's LACP going from these 2 switches down. And I'm going to go ahead and start the even numbers as well. I'm also going to plug my AP in. If we jump over to the console, you can see that the switch has already named itself. We might have BGP established, at least half is established. And just that quick, our BGP is up. We should be able to do a show check to make sure that our ESI lag to our 2 downstream switches are configured, as well as our ESI lag up to our VSRX. And we can look at our EVPN database, which is an eye chart. But we should be able to see this 5C5B35. This is my Mist access point that got that. So it is coming up. There are getting addresses, which mean I should be able to, and Ed will like the fact that my VRFs are named -VRF. And I should be able to ping through my fabric out to that. If all is right with the world, I also might actually have an EP online. Not yet. That's the one trick of this demo, is getting everything up and online in the time allotted here. But at this point, I have a fully functioning fabric that is up and operational. ESI lag is up and working down to these switches. And yeah.
Jake?
Yes.
So quick question. So, and this is awesome. And the effort's really cool. What do you do in terms of prepping yourself before you actually get to the point where you're going to use Postman to help you navigate and run through what you just did? What is it? Typically just the CSV file and the topology and some network address space? What's the process that you go through as you sort of whiteboard this up? And you and Ryan sitting down and drinking beers and figuring out how you're actually going to get this stuff to work, right?
So in reality, it's just these two CSV files. I'm a visual person, so I whiteboard it out on my iPad. Mostly it's just figuring out which interfaces connect to which thing. This is all in KVM, which 2 weeks ago I didn't use KVM. So that was kind of a learning experience. Unfortunately, I can't get LACP to work in VMware. So this was kind of the option. But just kind of whiteboarding out the connections and then translating that into this. Actually getting into Postman and making this work was the easy part, because it's just API calls and it's just figuring out what I need to do and what the order of the logic is. It's the same process you would go if you were to write a business application to do this, or if you wanted to do it in ServiceNow, the flow is the same. Now, in this one,
You're using Postman to actually do the workflow of validating the parameters, making sure that those things are taken care of, which is a little different. That's a little outside of the regular scope of what most folks use Postman for, right? Because
and that's the goal of the runner collection, is to provide task-driven automation for folks who don't have, say, Ansible skill sets or Python skill sets. If I want to go create sites, there's a thing for that. If I want to go set the auto upgrade firmware for all of my sites, there's a quick and easy way to do that. EVPN is probably the most complex one I've done to date, probably because it's the most complex task. But the goal is to extract all of that away from what the user has to know to go in. I'm the dumb wireless guy. Like, Sajit shows all these commands for EVPN and BGP. I'll share a secret. I don't know how to configure BGP. I'm barely Junos literate.
Well, I guess my question is really this: which camp does this fit in terms of how Juniper wants their? I realize Juniper wants to give the right set of tooling for their customers to deploy the right set of technologies, but my question is do you see automation really happening in the Mist framework side of the fence, of saying like, hey, Mist AI is really how you should be going about this? Is this really there to help support people that are on an automation journey? Or is this more like Postman this is a tool set for those of us that are starting off in config and automation, and go ahead and use this runner to go ahead and get things working?
Yeah, I think that's the latter is more the case. It's more about getting people who don't have automation skill sets the ability to still do the things that they need, and some basic automation is there. Obviously, if you look at a subset, those who have automation skill sets are going to use those. Those who don't, are they just left out, right? Or it's like, oh, I want to do some basic automation things. Am I just kind of left out?
Well,
So the goal of Runner is to provide some capability quickly and easily to those folks.
This is the low lift portion of it, Ryan, that you guys are providing open source out there. This is like the starting point. Are you guys going to continue to support publishing more of these across the board for different use cases? What's the plan? That's
part of my gig. Like this entire collection are task driven. I have K-12 customers deploying all of their sites this way, and EVPN is just the new thing that we have to show. It's not published yet. I still have to write docs, but the goal is that this will be available. The Postman runner collection is available today, and this runner specifically will be probably as we get closer to GA will be available as well.
Hey, Jake, what's going on, man? I just had one quick question. I wanted to know, like, and I've seen Postman and used it very limited, but I've seen demos and stuff. Now, is there a limit with the runner collection to how many devices this can reach? Is there like a cap on that?
No. So this took about 70 calls to deploy that EVPN. Although if you were doing this, like if I was having something else do that, you could do it in 8 calls. There's only 10 unique endpoints in this runner collection. But that said, we've got a site. I think it's like 2,500 sites that we've deployed this. I have a customer with around 10,000 sites. They deployed and created and then updated several times all of those sites using Postman Runner. So it works at scale.
Awesome. Okay.
Going back real quick to what Ed said about who's going to use this. You have professional services teams out there. They're going to write their own tooling. Even if they're not doing it now, they're eventually going to write their own tooling. So if they're deploying a campus like this once a week, you're going to want your own customization, your own tools, and everything to go exactly the way you want it. If you're a K-12 customer and you're deploying this once every 5 years, why write your own tools? We're going to build some for you. We'll help you through that process and be able to get it out the door really quick. Still automate the process, but automation isn't just solving a weekly problem. It could be solving the decade problem. This way, next time it needs to be deployed, you can use the exact same framework to do it and get the exact same result out of it.